Welcome to our latest in the St Lawrence Faith Talks. I'm pleased to be joined by Andrew, the vicar. And Andrew, I just wanted to cover off a couple of things in terms of your views of where we are now and what might be happening in the future.
Brilliant.
So first of all, what do you think has been your biggest challenge in Winslow as you come to the end of your tenure here?
Biggest challenge? I think the biggest challenge is always in shaping the culture of a church. Because I think once you've shaped the culture of a church, other things just follow. Mm-hmm. I think there's a real danger in every church of, just kind of doing what you do because you do what you do.
Yeah.
And the seasons roll and you do such and such a thing at such and such a time. And that's brilliant, but none of those issues really address who are we here for, what are we trying to be like, what are our values, our missional values. So I think, creating a culture which leads into mission is really the trick, is really difficult, but just so important.
And what do you think, what are you proud of what you think you've managed to do here over the last sort of 6 years?
Well, I'd want to get rid of the word you and say we, because, the church is all of the people, all of the baptised. Mission doesn't just sit with the dog collars, it sits with everybody. Mm-hmm. So I think, blimey, what would I be proud of for this church? I think I'd be proud that we've enabled other people to do things and to step forward in mission and be Christians in and for community. Mm-hmm. I would be proud of how we've engaged with community, and I think the last 2 years of the pandemic have brought that sharply into focus. Yeah. So I'm immensely proud of the work of the food cupboard, which really, to all intents and purposes, is a small-scale food bank. And I believe, through that, lives have not only just been changed, but perhaps even saved. I've been immensely proud of how we've engaged with the community through things like the shop, through our ultimately unsuccessful campaign to preserve the TSB, but I think it was still something that was just incredibly worthwhile doing. Being immensely proud of how the musical tradition has been preserved, and how we kept worship going, mm-hmm. and children's work going. And just proud of how everybody's pulled together, lay and ordained. Very proud of the clergy team. But a clergy team is only as good as the lay team. And a lay team only as good as the clergy team. It has to be that symbiotic. So just proud of the people, really. At the end of every service I say, go in peace to love and serve the Lord, or somebody does. And I think, by and large, lots of people do. And that's what it's about at the end of the day.
It's interesting now because, we've been through so many changes over the last 6 years, particularly in the last 2 years, as you say, with COVID and all the impacts that that's had. So, and it's a difficult time for you, I guess, on the cusp of moving on to something else. But in terms of leaving Winslow, what message do you want to leave us with in terms of these are the big things which we need to try and focus on now?
I think the church is very simple and we overcomplicate it. We come to church to learn what it means to be Christian. Mm-hmm. Not just to learn, but to offer praise to God. And through that process, I hope, think, pray that we're changed. Mm-hmm. And we're changed for the better, and the expression of that change for the better is we become better neighbours, if you like, better members of community, better servants, and that can be in the big ways and the small ways. It can be in a smile offered at the right time, a cup of coffee made, or a load of computers cleaned for people who haven't got them in schools. It can be dramatic or undramatic. And that's kind of not for us to guess. So my encouragement, St. Paul says in, one of the epistles, and I ought to know, but I don't, I can't recall it off the top of my head, sorry, is keep on doing these things. It's in Philippians. Keep on doing these things. Keep on praising, keep on praying, keep on listening, keep on serving. And if we do those things that we're called on to keep on doing, somehow, mysteriously, everything else comes together. So just keep on would be my kind of message.
yeah. That's an interesting message, actually, because I think the concern probably for a lot of people is moving into an interregnum. We don't know how long it's going to be. There's always a risk that things dip off a little bit. So quite a need, I think, for us as a congregation to keep on.
And the other need, and it's not just for an interregnum, it's a permanent need, and it's one of my hackneyed lines that I've used a lot, so you'd be very grateful that you won't hear it again, is that the church has to be rooted in prayer so it can be rooted from prayer.
Yeah.
So keep on praying, because when we pray, strange things happen. Things become clearer. Our minds get changed. Our horizons get broadened. Stuff happens, and again, we don't know quite how that works or why that works or whatever, but keep on praying would be my biggie, so we're rooted in prayer and rooted from prayer.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good. And I guess one of the things that people are thinking about a little bit for you and for Sally Ann is where you're going on to, what your new role is. Can you tell us anything about that? A little bit about Newport, a bit about the cathedral, a bit about your role maybe there?
I've been lucky, I've loved being in this benefice. So, I'm leaving from a position I've absolutely adored being here. But I felt it was time earlier this year, as you know, to just start gently looking. And when I went to look at Newport, I remember being stood on a bridge that crossed the estuary and thinking, my goodness, this is nothing like Winslow. My previous night I'd had a £4.99 KFC supper as part of the, my interview night.
You know how to live, really.
And I know how to live, but, that was where it was at. And I remember standing on this bridge and thinking, how am I going to know if I'm offered this post, whether it's the right post for me? And I just found myself thinking, and you could say this is, the voice of God or the inspiration of the Holy Spirit or whatever. I'm not a great one for saying God spoke to me today and I need to tell you, George, what God said. Because when people do that to me, I say, well, that's funny, God never told me. Yeah. But I just felt this kind of inner feeling, prompting, which sort of said, can you love this place? And I thought, I can love Newport. It's so different. It's got so many structural issues that affect it. It has much more endemic poverty. It's much more multiracial. It's post-industrial. It's not Winslow. But can I love it? Yes. Can I love the people I'll be called to work alongside? I've met enough of them to think, very probably. And can I love the actual physical building of the cathedral? Because actually I think buildings are important as sacred spaces that can hold. And I thought, yeah, I love all those three things. And, what I would say to anybody stepping into any form of ministry, it's almost like the Peter test, isn't it? Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Is this just a job you're going to fill for a period of time? With pointy elbows out, waiting to get to the next place?
Or do you want to make a difference?
Or do you want to be here because actually there's a sense of love underpinning it? And of course, that doesn't mean you ever get things right all the time, or that you act in unloving ways to people some of the time. But, that sense of, can you love this? And I think for me to go from here, part of my prayer was it has to be something different. Me telling God, make something different happen. But, and it felt just markedly different, but yet in some ways very similar in that it has a really powerful ethos about the place. It's very inclusive. The choir's very inclusive. People get hung up on the word cathedral, but it feels very real and very human. It doesn't feel rarefied. Yes, of course, it has a cathedral standard, but we have standards here.
Yeah.
So it's not about being rarefied and special. Although I think the building and the people are special, it's about what you do with that counts. And I think it's got tremendous possibility. So, the job title's canon residentiary, which sounds very old-fashioned and very churchy.
Yeah, a few people have asked me what that means.
Well, good. When they find out, they can tell me. It was quite funny, actually. I was in church the other week and I heard two people talking about my job and one explaining it precisely. And I thought, well, that's interesting because that's not my understanding at all. So, with the cathedral, in some ways it's structured life. There's morning and evening prayer and Eucharist every day. So, it's a praying community that prays for the diocese, for the wider church, for the problems of the world in a kind of like very systematic way. And I think that's really important. And then, I will take my role as being what they call duty canon. So for 1 week out of every 3 is I think, I lead all the services except on Sunday.
Right.
All the midweek services. Not necessarily every Holy Communion, but every morning and evening prayer. And then, I need to think about congregational development, how we develop the existing congregation and grow new congregations, and the mission of the cathedral. Yeah. And mission of the cathedral is quite a messy thing, because you have to be aware as a cathedral, in the city, you've got other parish churches around. Yeah. So it's drawing in the right partners, being sensitive to the community you're in, the diocese you're in, but it's kind of taking your cathedral status seriously, but in a way that's not imperialistic, I hope. Hope nobody from Newport's watching this and I've got that wrong. And just to be somebody there that loves. Yeah. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah. To be part of that community.
Yeah. And that I think, would be my ultimate test, for here or anywhere. When you interview people, when you bring people forward, do you think it's going to be a love relationship?
Yeah.
If so, you've probably got a good chance. Yeah. If not, run a mile. It would be kind of my last message.
Yeah. Well, that sounds amazing, actually. I mean, I think, speaking for the rest of the congregation, certainly for myself, I think you and Sally Ann have made a huge difference in the time that you've been here. And I'm pretty confident you're going to make a difference in Newport. It will be a challenge, but then nobody grows if they don't have challenges, I think.
Yeah, it will be a challenge, but the ability to make a difference is dependent on other people as well, so it's not about us or me, it's about all of us. And, by and large, is this a church community that wants to grow? One of the phrases I often talk about is in number and in holiness. And by and large, in the benefice and here at St. Lawrence, I felt, actually, this is a load of people that are open. Yeah. And so, it's hands on the tiller stuff rather than,
Yes, we're going to turn left.
But, I've loved it. And, I've been really grateful for your support and friendship as warden as well.
Okay, good.
And everybody else that I've worked with.
All right. Well, I think, speaking on behalf of everybody, the best of luck and Godspeed, and we'd like to keep in touch and find out how the new job is going anyway.
Brilliant.
All right.
You're going to come walking with me in those hills. I know definitely. That for a fact.
I've been doing some research on that already.
Emma, who's recording, you've been doing some research already. Emma, who's recording, is not a great walker.
Oh, well, there's room for her.
But she's brilliant at being there with the cups of tea at the end.
I'm very happy to join you in a Welsh tea shop.
Come around and say hello, Emma. Emma's in charge of tea as well as digital communications. Tea and cake are important.
Head of tea and digital.
Head of tea and digital. Now, my last thing is I'm going to change your job title to Head of Tea and Digital.
I'll take it.
Don't tell the diocese. Where you're just Head of Digital. You're more senior here as you're Tea and Digital. George, thanks very much.
Thanks, Andy.
This quickfire round is the most scary thing because I have no idea what's coming. How did I hear God's call to ordination? You know what? As a small boy in the school chapel, I knew that God was calling me to something. I didn't know words like ordination then, but it goes back to a 13 or 14 or 15-year-old Andrew at school. And then it took me, 40 years to actually get there, and it just got such a bad itch that I thought I have to explore this. There is no alternative. And I remember going to my ordination conference, which was Bishop's Advisory Panel, as it was called then. It might still be now, I don't know. At Ely, and pulling into a lay-by just outside Cambridge, and just sort of having a kind of ranty prayer and saying, right, God, you know, I don't care what happens from this point, but you've got to make it clear one way or the other. You know, if I get rejected, I get rejected, but you need to know I'll never open this door again if I do. And if you want me to do this, you're going to have to make it so abundantly clear. So part of the call to ordination is affirmed by others, but there was an itch there that had been a 40-year itch, where I tried desperately not to get ordained, only to find out that when I was, it was the one thing I really, really needed to do. So if you feel the itch, go get it scratched. Oh, gosh. Favourite. I think it would have to be God so loved the world. I would find that really difficult to reduce it to one thing. But if we remember that God so loved the world that he sent his only son, you know, we're going to be on the right tracks. And there's a time to bring things back to basics. So God so loved the world that he sent his only son. My favourite part of my job, again, that's so difficult. There's so many things that I love, you know, to marry somebody or to baptise somebody, or even to do a funeral that somebody comes out at the end and says, thank you so much, is an absolute honour. To hear the choir sing in Christchurch Cathedral when Mark was ordained was, you know, how I didn't create a new baptistry on the floor instantly, sort of vaguely beyond me. I just think my favourite part of the job is knowing that through the ministry of the church, a difference is made. Now, I know who asked if I like sprouts. I'm really pleased that my Christingle talks and some of the talks nearer Christmas are listened to, because I keep going on about sprouts. And the reason I keep going on about sprouts is I can't flipping stand them. And yet, once a year, this thing that we don't eat the rest of the time suddenly has to appear, and it's kind of appears on my plate. And however much Sally Ann tries to make them not sprouts by putting bits of bacon or bits of syrup or something else there, at the end of the day, this sprout thing is still there. And I eat it. And I eat it out of a sense of profound duty. But I still wonder why this thing has to appear once a year. And if it was that great, why do we then try and dress it up to make it better? So no, the fact that sprouts have to be covered in bits of bacon or syrup or something else kind of proves my point that the sprout, well, it's proof of the fall, isn't it? That's what the sprout's all about. Sorry, end of. No sprouts. Thanks for the question, Monty. I know it was you.